right. Welcome to our select board meeting tonight, Monday, June 26th. We have a lean crew tonight. I'm Sabrina Dunlap. We have Ken Trum and Thomas Apoma, and Stephen Whitley and Jeff Donahoe are both on vacation and will not be joining us. So we will start with the points of pride.
Sure. This past week, both Kimball Pond opened and our summer camp started. It was a good week, maybe despite the weather. And everyone, so I really want to thank Paula for making sure that was all set. She was actually off this past week. So really a thank you to all the lifeguards and the pond director and all the camp staff and the camp director for really having a good week with no issues at all, which was great. And again, I'll just note the DPW running short-staffed, but trying to get everything done. And a thank you to Sam Courier too, as he wraps up. He's received very good, as you know, a great promotion to be the executive director of the New Hampshire Water Works Association. So he has done a lot in his time here and we'll miss him, but he's going to help with transition and that will be good. And I'll just note that on Saturday at noon here will be the Frederick Douglass speech as part of the Black Heritage Trail events. It's happening in numerous different towns. This is at least the fourth time we've done it here. I think there was a break in between for the pandemic, but so that will take place here on Saturday.
No, I'm always bummed I'm away this holiday weekend usually, so I've never been able to make it, but it seems like a great event and I'll be missing it unfortunately again this year. But the others can make it.
Yes, I know Neil and myself are reading, and Becky is also
Nice.
among others.
Thank you, Neil. Ken, do you have?
I just added,
Just pull the microphone close to make sure.
you know, just to thank everybody that's involved in the July 4th, the planning for the activities that are going to be happening then.
Mm-hmm. And also compliments to DPW, and the paving looks really good.
And weather permitting, the striping will happen tomorrow.
Nice.
Probably they're still trying to figure out. It won't be until at least after the 4th of July that loam and seed goes down. That's such a busy place trying to figure out how to do that, to get that done, but that will be done.
That's great.
That looks really good.
All right. So we move on to administrative. First up is approval of the consent agenda.
Sure, I'll move we approve the consent agenda of June 26, 2023.
One second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Right. Next is
Was Stephen going to be joining us? for this one?
he said he would, but he can't now. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so it's just the three of us. All right. So next is approval of the public meeting minutes from June 12th, 2023.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, approval of the non-public meeting minutes from June 12th, 2023, session 1. I can't remember if
Okay,
these were
I'll move and note they are sealed
right,
and
okay.
they'll in your packet.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
All right,
Aye. Okay, and now approval of the non-public meeting minutes from June 12th, 2023, session 2.
I'll move and note they are also sealed.
Mhm.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay. First up is our first public appointment at 5:30 with the Waste Reduction Committee regarding composting. Right, so you, Bonnie? Okay, come on up, Bonnie.
That may keep meetings shorter if it's only one,
It's true.
not necessarily. And you have
Summary, okay.
a summary that
Yeah, I'm sorry. We had our waste reduction committee meeting on Thursday night. And I already had family arrived at the house that stayed all weekend. And so I wasn't able to prepare anything until the last minute, but I think you have something which is short. Sorry about that. So we talked about doing a conceptual proposal for you guys for composting, which is one of our 2 ways of diverting waste from the landfill, composting and recycling. And so I think we mentioned before that we have been intrigued by the New London model, which has been very successful. And the town of Bow is also taking up that same model. And I think that that's probably the model that we will want to go with. It's what the Waste Committee recommends. There are only a few companies that do composting now, getting this far north, even though we're not really far north in New Hampshire, but it's all over Massachusetts, it's in Rhode Island, it's in Maine, it's in the seacoast area, but there are only 2 companies that I could come up with that we could compare prices with for our region. One is Renewal Compost, that's the New London group, the group that services New London. The other one is called City Compost, which has a service area all the way down into Rhode Island, but I just barely got some prices from them, and I don't think we're apples to apples in our conversation yet. I haven't had a chance to respond to the guy who sent them to me. Anyway, if we go with Renewal Compost, the concept is to start with a pilot project just to make sure that it works smoothly and everybody's liking it, it's successful, which would be advertising and getting 20 families or 20 households to participate. And we'd like to get a variety of households, anything from, a full house with kids to a single person to, maybe some older retirees, whatever. And we would have 2 large totes, and they would be 64-gallon totes, and they would be set up at the transfer station. And Jolene would find the best place that would not create a problem for traffic and drop off. And she suggested that we have a fence around it. In New London, they chained them to the building because they did have bears visit one night. But she suggested that we get one of those, they're called dog fences, basically, to put around it to protect it. And didn't think that that would be too much of a problem to either pay for or set up. So we'd have 2 64-gallon totes, and you can see on the pricing here that it's $180 for the first tote and $90 for additional totes. And then we do have some buckets that Dan Kilrain has at Worksong Farm, and he may have enough to help us out with that, but they can also provide 5-gallon buckets for residents to collect their scraps in. They're $10 each. Or I suppose if you have your own bucket with a secure lid that you like, I don't see any reason why you couldn't use your own bucket unless they have a concern. They would pick up the monthly charge. They pick up weekly, but the monthly charge would be $144 plus $28 for the additional tote. So that's what we're thinking about for the initial pilot project. And then we talked about if the pilot project works and we want to expand it at the transfer station, also consider having a satellite site somewhere in the town, because not everybody lives within a good driving distance to the transfer station, might want to drop their scraps off somewhere closer to where they live on the other end of town. So I think New London started with 20 households, and they have expanded it now to 160 households. That's what they're doing. And I think it's 4 totes. So ours would probably end up being similar. It's up to you when you want to expand it, if you want to expand it and open it up to the entire town, or have, again, a limited number, whatever. What else? Oh, the permit, until you reach 300 tons a week, the facility permit that we have at the transfer station, the existing permit, covers any food scrap collection. Once you reach that threshold, there's a different permit that you have to get from DES. But we certainly wouldn't reach that threshold with the with the pilot project. It would come later, if at all. So that's kind of the basics and the setup. Jolene is all in with this. She had some reservations about setting up composting on site. The advantage of that, if we ever want to go with it, is we don't have to pay the pickup fee and all that, save even more money, but it does take some work turning it and dumping it and so forth on site. And she was really relieved to hear that we were proposing that it would be taken off site and they wouldn't have to do anything. So in the last paragraph, I just threw some numbers out there as to what our tipping fees are now and where they will be in 2025, which is when we have that's when our contract ends and we have to renegotiate. And the EP estimate of 24.14% of municipal solid waste is food waste. And last year, our tonnage was 3,127 tons of MSW. That doesn't count our C&D going to the landfill. So that's the number that we're trying to reduce. And of course, a pilot project and a limited project isn't going to get rid of all of our food waste. And we probably never will get rid of all of our food waste, but we could certainly cut back and save a fair amount of money and all the other benefits that go along with composting. So that's pretty much what I have. What questions do you guys have and what more can we do to help?
Do you know if New London, they now do it on site or do they use pickup for theirs?
They're going to continue with pickup. They have a very small transfer station and I guess it was more trouble to find a site to do on-site composting and everybody liked Renewal and Renewal. I think I sent the link to their website, but I don't know how the guy does it, Lou and Megan. It's just the two of them. They're youngish UNH graduates, save the world kind of thing. But not only do they come and pick up compost, they will do curbside compost. They'll come to your house. And since they're coming to your house, they will deliver CSA meats. They will deliver flowers. They're doing it all. And I'm like, how do you guys do this? Just two people. But anyway.
Okay, that's helpful to know. And then in terms of like the cost of it. So I assume in New London, it started as a pilot and now obviously they've expanded it. So do you know, is it just free to any resident who wants to take part in it? Or do people have to like pay some extra fee to?
I don't know. I will find out. So they approved $12,000 at their town meeting out of their surplus funds to expand to 160 families. And I don't know if participants have to pay for their own at-home bucket or if that covers, I think that covers buying enough buckets for the 160 families. I'm not sure all the details, but I can certainly find that out for you.
And so the idea with the pilot obviously is to see if like interest level, see if it's disruptive or something at the transfer station, figure any wrinkles out. I think if we did go forward with a pilot, is there like other data or like feedback that the waste reduction committee would want to get from the 20 people who take part in it? Or
well, they know the weight. When they pick it up, they get the weight on it. So that would be our data, unless I don't know if there's any, we'd want to do a follow-up, questions. How did this work for you? Was it a problem or are there things that could be improved, whatever? But, I think Renewal does the weight and gives us the weight. So we would know how much we're diverting. We wouldn't have to do that.
How would the initial 20 families or whatever be selected?
Well, it's interesting. Maureen Prohl, who's the person in New London who really initiated this project with their waste reduction committee, she said that first they were sending flyers out. I don't know what mechanism they were using. They weren't getting a lot of response. And then she decided to advertise in the Kearsarge Shopper, that thing that we all get every week or however often. She said all of a sudden tons of people were applying, which was good for them because then they could select, because they wanted a diverse group of people, not, all retirees or all single people or whatever. So people applied and they wanted to make sure it would be people that would follow through, that wouldn't give it up midway through.
Mhm.
And so that's how they did it. And she recommended that. So that sounded good to me, but we certainly have Susan Covert's newsletter and we have the town website. So, yeah, I mean, I guess we would do the same thing.
And actually Jolene had sent out a mass email. I don't know if it was Friday or just recently, to all interested. Excuse me.
First the bridge, then the glasses.
Yes, we finally have the compost ready. We will start giving it out on Monday with 1 load per household until the demand slows. Then come and get it as you please. Remember to check in and let us know you're heading out there, even if you're loading yourself. Thank you. So how does that, what Jolene is talking about, fit in with this?
They're two different things. We're talking about food scrap composting. What they do now at the transfer station is yard clippings, branches, landscape stuff, and they compost that. It's a different process, and a lot of people don't necessarily want to use that compost because they don't know, what chemicals are being used on the lawns that the clippings are coming from, or what might be in the wood that's being composted. So they're really two different things. I think in Lebanon, they put it all in together to giant windrows, but ours would be, the food would be one thing. What they're already doing there would just continue as they've been doing it. I did have one question that I haven't followed up on, and that's like, okay, so we are providing the food scraps and the people, and we're paying them to pick up, and then they're making compost, and then it gets sold. And it's like, couldn't we get some of that? Providing the raw materials. I don't really know the answer to that, but it seems like, I mean, that's another benefit of doing it on site in your own community, is you can give it back to the residents.
Mhm.
Yeah. So. Anywho.
So many questions. I love compost. Just to be clear, I love compost.
Uh-oh, here it comes.
No. I mean, we've been composting. It's cut our trash like in half.
Right, right.
Okay, so the 144 pickup, does that include the first tote? Or is it 144 for the pickup charge and then also $28 per tote?
My understanding is it's 144 if you have one tote. And for however many other totes you have in addition, you add $28.
So it's 144 for the first. And then
So it's
28 for
172,
the
right?
first.
144 for the first. And
And then
and we'd
28.
have at least 2 totes to start. So it would be 170.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So here's where, because
Crunch the numbers for me.
right.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. So like worst case scenario, that's 64 gallon tote is 500 pounds. Best case on average, it's 6.2 pounds per gallon, which would be 396 pounds per tote. So the tonnage, basically what it comes out to is not including the 144 pickup, just the $28 per tote charge. We're looking at $109 per ton to $141 per ton. And so like, we're not getting anything back, right? Like we don't get any compost and we don't get any money back from them. So it seems like this is, we're kind of just paying more money to get rid of the same stuff.
I'm not totally following that.
Okay.
So
So in average of weight per compost per gallon is 6.2 pounds per gallon. But worst case scenario, if it was just water.
and where is that number from?
So that's a random study I just found online, which could be wrong. But let's say best case scenario, it's 8 gallons. So 8 gallons of water. So let's just say we filled it up with water, which is like worst case scenario. So that'd be eight pounds per gallon. So like our best case scenario, we're packing it full 512 pounds for that 64 gallon tote. So to get rid of that 512 pounds, we're paying $28, which comes out to $109 per ton. So like we're not getting compost and we're not getting money back. And it's a better use of the waste, which is good. It's a benefit to the environment for sure. But it is a more expensive way to get rid of the same thing. Does that make sense?
Sort of, but I'm not sure. I need to think it through.
Okay.
You're always way lightning ahead of me.
I mean, yeah, I mean, like in this.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
But like,
Yeah, right,
Dan's thing is great. Like the
Right.
Workstone farm is great because they don't charge you any money to take the compost.
Right.
And then they're using it. So that's like a
Right.
win-win,
Yes,
win.
Right.
But in this scenario, they're not only not taking it for free, they're charging us to pick it up. That pickup charge is more than what we'd be paying to send it to the transfer station, and we're not really getting anything in return. At least that's what it seems like.
can you put those numbers down and email them to me?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, on site, you still might not be making out on the dollars, but at least you would potentially have the like
Well,
dirt.
Well, on site, we don't pay any money for it, right?
Oh, because they're not picking up.
Like on
Right.
site, if we just
Right,
like plowed
exactly.
it into the field.
Right,
Exactly,
it's
right.
zero.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
right,
That would make tons of sense because
Yeah.
it's just like half of our waste, we no longer have to pay for it.
Right.
right,
Even if we didn't provide it back to the community, even if we didn't have free compost pickup or if we didn't sell it or anything, just the fact that we're not spending $93 a ton for it, or let's just call it $90 a ton. But their per tote pickup cost is more expensive than our transfer fee.
so far.
Well, I mean, even passed out until 2025.
Yeah, and then comes the new contract and we'll see.
Well,
what
so I mean, I would
happens with
assume,
that. But their costs may increase too over
Right,
time.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So those are unknowns, and I hear exactly what you're saying without being able to totally follow the numbers. So we do get the other benefits, which is reduction in methane and,
It's a better use of waste for sure.
Yeah, it's a better use of waste, but I hear what you're saying, and that's a consideration. So the other option is to compost on site, and then we need to do a cost analysis on that. So don't quote me on this, but I've been to a lot of conferences and had heard a lot of people talk about composting. And it doesn't seem like the time input is huge for staff. So I think, without verifying with numbers, that it would be, even with added staff hours or added staff person or whatever to maintain the on-site compost, you'd still be saving money. I can't verify that without doing a full analysis, but yeah, I mean, those are things to think about.
I mean, your numbers here, if we divert all of our food waste,
Yeah,
that's $70,000 a year.
right. Right. And then, are we talking about just Hopkinton, or are we talking about Webster too? Like,
For all of our food waste, or
well, I'm just thinking about this pilot project. Are we going to try to reach out to Webster because they contribute to our
The
3,100?
755 tons includes both. So your numbers.
Right. So what I'm asking is, are we going to reach out to them and ask them if they want to participate in reducing that?
you mean like letting them also use the totes?
Or you mean take part in the pilot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's up to you.
So
I mean-
sorry, I just have two questions before I forget. One is, do you know, so New London has pickup. Do you know, I saw the Bow article, but I didn't read the whole thing. Do you know if they're doing on-site?
No, they're doing the same
The
thing with
pickup?
renewal compost.
And then the other issue is just thinking about this like Webster question in terms of like, if you do, even like with a pilot, if you have like a thing at the transfer station that people come and dump their home buckets in, how is that? I guess, how do you stop people from just coming with their, how do you limit it in the pilot situation? How do you keep it to like those 20? Like, how do you
Well,
regulate?
The way it worked in New London, and it is a small place, but the office, the manager's office at the TS is like within spitting distance of the shed that the things were chained to. And the deal was you're supposed to just check in and let the guy know that you were dumping. And it was just a few families. So he knew pretty quickly, he could just eyeball it and say, oh yeah, you're good. But yes, I mean, you do want to have a control so you don't have people dumping all kinds of stuff in there and people who are not part of it. And yeah.
Okay.
So we need to work that out with Jolene, whatever works best for them.
Do you know if the new London one is going to expand outside of the 160?
I don't know. What's your pleasure? How can we help?
So Jolene's only concern, which has already been brought up, was the fencing to make sure that
Mhm.
it is totally enclosed.
Yeah.
Just to
So
keep
is there a spot in
records.
mind where that would work?
We did
We didn't
not.
get that far.
Yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
not sure she's thought about that yet.
Yeah.
We were thinking, when you come in and you go around the curve and here's the recycling building and then the big wall of the end of the shed, that would be
Mhm.
a great place to put the totes, but they can't see that out of the office window, so they'd have to be monitoring that in a different way.
Mhm.
Setup isn't quite as convenient as what they have in New London. I believe.
So I guess like I also am a composting fan like Thomas. So I would like to see this move forward, but I guess a sort of bigger question is there any point, like if we haven't figured out the sort of bigger picture question, which is like, does it make financial sense? / does it only make sense if we do it on site? And then do we need to figure out like, is that even possible? Do we need to figure out those bigger questions before we say yes to a pilot? Or, I mean, maybe I'm a little concerned about, I don't want to create more work, obviously, for the staff there. And I'm just a little worried about regulating the thing to make sure that people aren't just dumping whatever they want in there.
Right.
And so then it's like, do you lock it up? But then, people who are in the pilot would have to go bother the transfer station people to come like unlock and so I don't know. I do have some questions about that, but I guess for you two, and I wish we had our full board right now, but do we want to like talk more about the sort of like bigger picture issues? Cause I don't want to do a pilot if we think like there's no chance.
Well,
You don't want to invest in one thing and then switch to a completely different thing and people.
Yeah,
"Wait,
or-
I mean, so if, let's say this pilot worked great and everyone started using it and we could maximize going to 500 or like all of our, it goes bananas. We move the entire town over. We're moving 755 tons over. Based on these price numbers, I don't necessarily know if that's a good thing. I mean, it's definitely a good thing for the environment, but like it would not be good for the budget. And so like in that case, I don't know if that's if the goal is composting, I don't know if that's the best end goal.
What's the differential between, the tipping fee and the pickup?
So I mean, it could vary widely between. So let's just ignore that one-time pickup charge and just do the 28 per tote. Then it's right now.
I was playing around with the numbers too, and I think the difference is the 28 for the additional tote versus about an $18 savings per ton.
Wait, where's the savings per ton?
If we're not, it's not going through the regular waste stream. If you assume about $90 a ton.
Yeah.
Or
But a tote isn't 1 ton.
no, a tote is a fifth of a ton.
Yeah. Well, somewhere in that, it could,
Assuming it's full.
assuming it's full. So I would see, depending on, again, the weight could be wildly different, but somewhere between an extra $20 to an extra $60 per ton. So if we moved over all of the waste stream, all of that half of the waste stream, 500 or 755 tons over, it'd be an additional cost of $20 to $50 per ton.
Which doesn't make sense financially.
Right.
Right.
So that's why I'm not sure if we want to start it like. If the goal is to expand the trial and that's like the best case expansion.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make sense, then I don't know if the trial makes a whole lot of sense.
Could I make a suggestion? It seems like New London also has to think about their budget, as does Bow. And they seem to think that this was advantageous. Maybe it would be good to hear from them. And to hear from somebody at DES who works with lots of towns on this, to understand if, are we thinking this through correctly, or are we off on something? I'd hate to see us turn this down if we're not calculating things right. But I totally hear what you're saying. I mean,
I would be curious to know how, like, Bo is probably more comparable, obviously, like size wise to us. I wonder how they dealt with the budget and like financial issues.
Does the composting company have better numbers on these? Like, do they know how much a tote, their average tote weighs?
I'm sure they do.
Well, they may have a scenario where they show where it saves the town money,
Right,
and that would be interesting to see.
right.
Yeah.
So this week, Jolene and I are meeting with Brian Patno from NRRA, who's been going through our numbers. So
Mhm.
this may be something to add to that discussion.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
You know, we should check on these numbers. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Nope, that was it.
Because I have this write-up from New London, and it said they were paying $37 for pickup. And that was with one tote.
So that'd be worse.
One, as opposed to 144.
Yeah.
That makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
You know, I would really like to
It-
bring in the people who
still
are
doesn't
doing
look
this.
into
to-
The-
Plus,
Right, but the numbers that I'm looking at are only the $28 per additional tote. Like, I'm ignoring the 144. So if
I see what you're
if you include the 144, it's like real bad. So
I don't know what that 144 pickup is exactly.
because if it's the 144 and we only have one tote, that's $500 to $700 a ton.
Well, how about you email me all your questions, and our mission as the Waste Reduction Committee is to do research.
Okay.
Research and come back. Would you mind if I brought in people from the other towns? Because it's hard for me to anticipate what the questions are, and
Seems like there should be research first to determine if that's worth doing. And there could be offline conversations with them too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe just process wise, we'll send you our questions and Thomas can send you his numbers. And then if you guys are able to get some clear answers, both from the compost people about like their average tote weights and maybe just some like basics on how the other towns dealt with the budget and like the cost of it to start there. Okay, so we'll reach out to you, Bonnie. With our,
yeah.
okay,
maybe we should coordinate through Neil.
right, okay, we'll send to Neil, Neil
And I'll
sends to
send it
you.
out, sure.
Okay. Keep it all in one place. Okay, well, I think, yeah, I'm not throwing in the towel yet, but I think if we have some more clarity, that would be great, because I just don't want to do a pilot if we don't like have any hope of it working longer term.
Right.
But I do want to see this work, so.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, thank you for coming in and all the Waste Reduction Committee's efforts on this.
Yes.
Mhm.
I had a comment on something else, but I can wait for the public comment period if you'd rather.
It's not related to green, oh,
Nope.
okay. If you don't mind waiting, that will help us keep things in order.
Can do.
And we could move, if others agree, since we only have two people on as well, we could move our public comment up maybe one category up, so you don't have to sit around too long.
Okey doke.
Right. All right, so that was our one public appointment. Next up, we have old business. And first under that is Electric Aggregation Committee.
Neil had sent in the packet the more complete draft of the committee charge. And, thank you for doing that, Neil. I just had a couple of little typos. In committee tasks 1, Roman 6.
Let me just share this so people.
Sure.
How met metered?
Yeah, net metered. And then under Roman 7, you just say by the commission. I think, want to clarify, it's the New Hampshire Public Utilities Commission.
Which is, where's that?
In Roman 7. The next one from where you just changed the net.
Oh, by the commission. Got it.
And so with that, at our last meeting, I went over why, we wanted to go down this approach. And everybody that's currently on the Energy Committee, plus one individual that has participated in our meetings, have all interest in joining the committee.
I might just be missing, this might be a typo, I might just be missing stuff, but in 1B7, there's the assistance program administered by the commission. Is that the committee or is that a different commission?
No, that's what I was saying. That should be the New Hampshire Public
Got it.
Utilities Commission.
Got it, cool. Sorry,
So we'll update that.
sorry, I was.
Up-
Sorry.
In
I
this.
thought I missed it.
And in the statute, it needs to be an electric aggregation committee. But I thought naming it the Community Power Committee was much better for, as they do all their PR and education. And
Yeah.
people
Yeah,
will understand that better than electric
Electric
aggregation.
Aggregation.
absolutely.
Okay, so do we need to officially
Adopt
adopt?
this, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions, Tom?
No, yeah, if you're comfortable with it, Ken, this sounds.
Yeah, okay, I'll move, we approve the slightly revised Hopkinton Community Power Committee charge.
I'll second that. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Right, it's unanimous. All
Um,
right, thank you, Ken.
do we want to remove this aspect from the other committee's charge? We talked briefly about it last time,
I think we do.
just that there's like a clarity around meeting purpose.
I'll bring that next time with that removed. I think
Okay.
that's,
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Next up is discussion about a dilapidated building. Okay, so I don't know if everyone, I have a vague sense of, and I do know where this is actually. So this building has been vacant for a long time. And then a tree fell on it and the structure's been very damaged. And I believe that the RSA cited here, that gives us the authority to take action, especially if it's like a potential public health hazard, right? We've done this before.
yes.
Yeah.
And you can take it down. And I think I included in there a draft letter to have a response before your next meeting, so you can take action at that meeting. If nothing has happened.
I feel like we have maybe had to deal with an abandoned health hazard maybe one time in my time on the board. I can't remember exactly, but
Health hazard is slightly different.
okay.
Because as health officer, we did condemn a building
And what
under the
happens-
health ordinance.
Okay,
And nobody has lived there since.
so it's just a structure that's sitting condemned.
Right,
Okay.
right.
So in this case.
And in this case, it's dilapidated building, so it's not the health ordinance.
I see.
Because somebody's living there, but just now it's a public safety issue.
So their options are to fix it or that's really the only option.
Or the town
Or
can
remove it.
step in and tear it down, and
Well, they can tear it down, right?
they can tear it down.
Fix it, tear it down, or we can intervene. Okay.
That's what happened at the place across the street.
Here?
Same thing.
Oh,
Yeah. And then they tore it down.
Any other things to discuss on this one, Neil? Or,
I don't think so. I have the letter if
okay,
you're in agreement to sign.
yeah,
Oh, I'm in agreement. I don't want to sign till we.
yeah,
all
yeah.
vote.
I think three of us have consensus. Okay. Finally, under old business, barn update.
Sure. So things are happening, which is kind of nice. So a week ago, Friday, the excavation began around the barn. Last week, the demolition crew came in to remove all the cement that's inside, as well as the fence all went up. Everything's fenced in. And so this week, the building movers come in and they will begin. Part of the thing that the demolition crew did is basically cut holes in the foundation so that the beams can go across and come out. On one side, it's open anyways, but the other side. So they will begin, and it should be up in the air by mid-July.
Oh,
When the foundation company comes in. So it will pretty much go straight up where it is. The company that's doing it said at the moment, this seems like a huge thing to me, watching and meeting with them all. And but they said they have 6 barns up in the air right now. So this was no big deal to them. So it will be interesting to watch. We've met and the contractor's representative on site has given all his contact information to all of us, as well as Paula and to Rose at the library. So far, things seem to be going well. Parking's a little bit of an issue on Wednesday, but people will be able to come in on the back from the back of the Slusher Center, so they can park down there. So, and the Slusher Center's porch deck is a great place to watch what's going on.
nice. All right. Well, that's good to hear. Any questions on the barn? Okay. Does anyone object to moving public comment up above new business, since we only have 3 people on and Bonnie's one of our few in attendance? And
Fine.
all right, we'll move public comment up and then we'll continue on with new business. So anyone online, feel free to raise your hand, and Bonnie, feel free to come on up for public comment.
My question was just about the newly paved parking lot at the Riverway Park. My understanding is that there's no stormwater control built into that project. Does anybody know anything different on that? I mean, no drains or no
There are no drains.
Okay,
No, it
s-
sheets off.
So, and since it's right on the riverbank, where does it sheet off to?
It sheets into the gravel towards the river.
Yeah, that's my comment. Stormwater runoff is the single largest form of pollution of New Hampshire rivers and lakes. And we're not different than any other town. Well, I can't say that definitively, but we're not different than most other towns. New Hampshire has very weak stormwater controls. And I did ask about this before the paving was done. I said, are we doing anything about a stormwater plan down there, particularly because it's right on the river? And the answer was no, because it would cost more money to do that. And that's a real concern to me, just as an individual, but also on the Conservation Commission and the River Advisory Committee representative for Hopkinton. I think it's something that we really should think about. Any thoughts about that? Any concerns from the select board? Does anybody share any of my concerns? And
I would say I don't know much about stormwater, but that's something I would care about. I'm just thinking about before it was paved, would it be less concerning from your perspective because it is like absorbed in a different way? Is that it doesn't run off the same way?
well, I think wasn't it partially paved and partially gravel down there?
Well, there was a center island.
It was
that
kind of a mix.
dirt.
Yeah.
The
And
rest was, all the parking was paved.
so I know that in our state, gravel and pavement are both considered impervious surfaces, meaning they don't absorb the stormwater. Some people think gravel is better than pavement, but it isn't really. So, one thing that you can do if you're having a new paving project, that's an opportunity to do something different and say, hey, we're expending the money. We should think about this. We should put a plan in place. So part of the project down there was paving, but then there's also landscaping. I think is Eric Buck who did the landscape design down there. So we could think about doing some rain gardens, and the state has some good programs on that. I don't know that they're going to pay all the costs of it, but they work very well. They're very good for educational purposes, and this is an ideal time to think about that. And I've also talked to people at Trout Unlimited and the Merrimack Conservation Partnership, and there was one other group, and they, like Trout Unlimited, in the interest of protecting the trout in the rivers, they actually have tree planting and other planting programs that they have money to help towns do. And I would love to see us research some of those things, those opportunities out there where we can figure out how can we keep the river clean along our stretch of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I have two contacts, one at Trout Unlimited and one at Merrimack River Conservation Partnership, and I could ask both of them what specific programs they have and what they could provide us for help. I'm not sure who the person is. It could be Anna Wells, it could be Dan. I don't really know where this lies in the structure.
Yeah, you'd probably bring it back to me first and I'll figure that out.
Okay.
So, I do want to note that it was permitted and all the permit requirements have been met, which doesn't mean stormwater isn't beyond that, but just to be clear about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that is true. The state doesn't require it, which is a problem. But if you'll notice driving all up and down our roads, all of the drains drain into the river. And the river is a water source for the city of Concord.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention all the critters that live in it and those of us who swim in it and recreate in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know how to bring stormwater into a conversation in the town, but I'm willing to keep trying.
Mhm. Were you gonna say something, Ken?
I was just actually going to ask Neil, the part where the parking is between the section house and the covered bridge. Is that the town?
Some of it is not. So actually, one paver did it for, and it was paid for by the town and two other property owners. It made sense to do it all at once, but they paid for that. Anything over that way.
So is it their property, right closest to the river in that area?
On that side, yes, I believe it is.
Because I think that's where your bigger concern is.
No,
Your
because,
valid
no,
concern.
because at the other end, it also, there's that little ditch that runs in between the parking lot and Rich Houston's cornfield, and that runs down from,
Mhm.
the Beaver Pond and Cross Road and under the,
Okay, all right.
yeah, so it's all one, it's at both ends, really. So,
Yeah, I think if those two groups you mentioned, I think it's worth looking into, and yeah, thank you for bringing it up.
yeah. The other concern is, of course, in the winter with the plowing, anything, if it's all going to be plowed into the river, I'm not sure that that's allowed.
Is it gonna be plowed in the winter?
Cloud
Where,
goods the river, not into the river.
well, effectively, where would it go? You'd have a big, I don't know where the snow will go when it's plowed. Where will they put it?
So but there's a big difference between plowing to one end where there's dirt and things that the melt goes through before it gets to the river, than just dumping it in the river. I just want to, language is correct.
And dump it in the river, but effectively it ends up,
Yeah.
water
But
runs
they've been
downhill,
plowing.
and so does all the trash that's on the surface when it gets plowed. That all goes into.
That's been plowed always, right? It's
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
That's it.
Okay, all right, well, thank you, Bonnie.
Yeah.
Does anyone else wish to speak for public comment? All right, thank you for everyone who's joined us online. And we now will go back, we'll close public comment and go back to new business. And first up is year-to-date finances.
sure, this is through May. Probably for your next meeting or the meeting after, will be 6 months through the year. So we'll do a much more in-depth sort of analysis all the way through. But really revenues are where they should be. They, nothing surprising there. I will note that as we were going through, there's actually $38,500 that was put in other state grants that is actually block grant. So that will get corrected into there. Also worth noting is how high interest on investments are. We also, was going to be in under town administrator updates, but I'll just do it now to note. We'd had a hard time with our credit card company, so we've now switched to Citizens Bank, and we also will be using them for I don't want to say extra funds, but funds that are allocated but aren't expended yet. And our interest rate will go up substantially. So we should see that line be even further above budget at what we budgeted. So that's a good thing. And that's revenues, unless there's any questions.
Maybe it's just timing, but the check that we received from Kentucky Hydro.
That was in June.
Okay.
No, actually, I think it's in there. That is in there.
And
Yep, it's included in that amount. But we haven't received things from others because it was billed after that.
what account is it in?
Payment in lieu of taxes.
Oh, okay.
And that is in there in that 15,473. And anything else on revenue?
The column prior year-to-date revenue, I assume next year that'll get filled in.
Yeah, I don't know why it ended up in that report, but we could certainly run a report with that in it.
Okay, I'm not looking to have extra work. I just saw that and I figured, well, it's just,
Yeah, it just happened to be the report I picked and then it didn't populate it. So we can,
if it's simple, then maybe for the 6-month one, it would be beneficial.
okay, we can do that.
Thank you.
And expenses probably worth just a couple things worth noting. Cemeteries always looks like it's way over because it gets reimbursed from the cemetery trust. Health agencies is our cap payment, which we made, which is $5,900 that gets voted as part of the budget. That is done for the year. And bonds and notes, it all depends on the timing. Some of those look over, but those will all come out pretty much exactly where they are. I think that everything else looks like it's very much in line with where it should be.
$9,000 on legal services?
$9,000 on legal services.
Yeah, am I reading that right? Legal services has 20,000 budgeted.
Year-to-date.
And $9,000. I can look, I know town meeting is in there, which usually is one of our most expensive things, prepping for it as well as having an attorney at it. Trying to think, we have one PSNH tax case, but we pay very little for that because we're in with all the other towns. And there's been some work, which was not very expensive either because of all the other towns with the state and the 3M suit on PFAS. Right now that's kind of on hold and we don't have to provide any information yet, but we may at some point. I think there's
Has
been,
that been a settlement recently? I thought I read something about 3M settling on PFAS. Nationally.
don't know that they did, but it was how we ended up not in it, I believe, is because it is a federal case. Some of it, they couldn't, whatever method they used to request all the information from all the towns, which was largely to slow things down. The courts ruled was invalid. So,
Yeah, I remember seeing the data requests. They were
Yeah.
overwhelming.
yes, very, very similar to some of the utility suits that had happened.
I think I've said that before.
Yeah, sure. But really, other than that, we're right where we should be.
Right.
Fine.
You're good?
Yes, I'm good.
Wow. Okay. All
Wow.
right.
Sorry.
Thank you, Neil. All right. Next under new business, water/sewer superintendent position.
Sure. So, as you all know, Sam is moving on, which is good for him, not so good for us. In meeting, I met with Mike Metcalf from the precinct commissioners, and then the precinct commissioners met. We were in agreement that we are understaffed. DES had talked to Mike about the fact that they should have more staff on the water side. And I shared with you that letter about DES saying we should have 2 full-time people on the sewer side, which seems like a lot. But in that, the talk was that each side would probably, a recommendation is to move to a full-time person on each side. The precinct would hire their own person and who would do water. And then we would have the sewer person. And ideally that our sewer person would also do the community well. And I think maybe based on the discussions last time, have further discussions with the Hopkinton Village Precinct water commissioners on that those 3 things may fit in well together. as far as expense, it really doesn't change our expense. It just changes our revenue if the precinct, the Kentucky Village precinct isn't paying half. But it looks like the community well, that would just become part of that person's job within their 40 hours. So we would save about 13,500 there. And then currently Hopkinton Village Precinct pays $1,200 a month to WSO. And if we, that would be 14,400. So that gets us pretty close to almost breaking even.
Does the Kentucky board, do they do anything with management of the wastewater facility? Or sewer just completely town side?
Sewer is completely town. So they just do
Yeah, just.
their water.
And in putting these numbers together, the Hopkinton Village Precinct is, they're thinking in terms of 14,000 a year.
The number what I said is they currently pay
Mhm.
WSO $1,200 a month, and that's where I took the number. We haven't had
Mhm.
further conversation with them about that.
They're currently meeting in the other room.
They are. So I don't want you to think they've committed to anything or we've committed to anything. I just needed a number, and that's currently what they're paying.
And we pay an outside vendor about 13,000 for the community well.
No, we pay in-house. It was Kent Barton, who was our mechanic, and then Sam took that on. But that's above and beyond his regular hours. So we budget for overtime hours. And that would become within the regular hours of a person who is just doing the wastewater side.
Would it once, because we have to hire somebody to replace Sam, would the qualifications be higher because they'd be doing community well also?
Higher than
Ju-
just wastewater?
Correct.
Yes. If you only required wastewater, that would be lower. But from what Sam has said, getting what you would need for wastewater, if you didn't have that certification, would be relatively easy if you have wastewater. Wastewater is more complicated than drinking water.
Okay.
And how long do we have until?
Sam gave a month's notice, so we've got another short time, and we may need to look at something temporarily
I was gonna say, do we?
in
have
the
to-
interim. So
Is
we
there?
are looking for a couple to have some options.
Okay,
So,
yeah,
and Sam is willing to help as much as he can too. And we may be able to use him a little bit part-time and his license to
okay,
operate.
all right.
But if it seems like that's the right track, we can keep moving forward to
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Cool.
All right, more staffing
um
on our list.
yeah, anyone who has any suggestions on how to get more staff, I've had a couple different conversations with Dan trying to figure out what is best. Largely, I think the plowing is really doing people in, and it's hard that even with more money, the plowing's still an issue. And we don't have any solutions for that, really. But we may want to consider like a winter bonus when people do that, when they plow or something, just to try to keep that going. We really, if we can't fill these positions by winter, puts us in a really bad place.
Mhm.
But we're not alone.
Mhm.
We're definitely with almost every other town who has positions open. So, and we've largely done better than other towns up until now. So,
So is that something we need to think about and take action on sooner rather than later so that when those positions are posted?
thinking maybe having, I think we talked briefly about having Dan come in just to
Yeah,
feel supported too
Yeah.
in that. So,
hear his thoughts on like what are the real pain points and what are the things we can try to address.
try to address,
with
yeah,
things like a signing bonus and then a retention
And-
bonus or something.
yeah. I think that because we've had such a long serving DPW crew. We've been
know.
very fortunate and
I know. Are they getting any applications for?
we haven't had any, but neither is anyone else. But a part of the problem is we're definitely in line pay wise with other towns, but we're not in line pay wise with all the pavers who just pay an astronomical amount
Mhm.
because they need people too.
And the state probably. Well,
the
the state has a ton
state-
open.
And I think they had 700 open positions last year for plowing. They were giving bonuses to people not in the DOT to come in. Anyone who could drive a plow was being encouraged to come and do that. So it's a real issue.
All right, well, why don't we bring Dan in?
I
for
would
our next
do
meeting
that. I
if
think
that's
that would-
not a pain for him. All right, any other updates, Neil?
All right. I already talked about the new credit cards, the better investments. So in talking to Dana Hadley, who's the town administrator in Webster, for the month of July, they're on the same meeting schedule that this board is. So we wondered if an extra meeting on Monday, July 17th, to just do transfer station things at 6:30 in Webster. We haven't really I've been to Webster, but the board hasn't, and I
Yeah.
thought maybe that would be a helpful way to do it. So,
Yeah, because our other meetings in July are the 10th and 20th.
right.
Okay,
And because of they usually meet the first and third, which makes it easier for us to get together. But because of the holiday on the first, they're meeting the second and fourth. So
okay. So that would be the
July, which date?
July 17th
7th.
at 6:30. And if that seems I'll send that out. Jolene and I are meeting with Brian Patno this week to go through the numbers and to answer any questions he has from that. So I would expect you'll be getting a report before too long. We were approved by the governor and council for our rail trail grant. We're meeting this week on site that will connect basically from the library to Kearsarge Avenue, going across by where the community gardens were a few years ago, and then onto the railroad bed, which we now own from TDS, and cutting across to Kearsarge. So that's 100% funded. So that work will begin shortly. And a meeting with Sam and Hazen, our engineers on sewer, to talk about all the different sewer things, just to make sure we're up to date. We have the solar project, which has also been approved by governor and council, so we can get going on that. The Anna and the EDC have been working on information on sewer expansion. That's going on. We've also beginning the work on the sludge removal, which will be in connection with the lagoon closures at the transfer station. So all those things are going. I think that's it. It's like a very busy first few days of the week. And then I think next week, everyone's on vacation, so it should be nice and quiet.
Hopefully.
So we are going to be able to save some money because of the sludge from the,
Yes,
okay.
that should save substantially, like a lot.
Great.
But they don't have numbers yet, but they will. All the engineering firms are so backed up that we have to keep pushing them because they've got so much work and they're short-staffed.
I know everyone's super busy, but meeting with Chief Hennessy and a couple other people on the highway safety.
Oh, yes.
I think if we could just meet, just start, then we can
Add people.
repost, yeah, to see if anyone's interested in joining.
When works for you? Are you around next week at all?
I can send
So
you
we
some
can
dates.
send
Does
some
that
dates.
work? Okay.
Perfect. Yeah. that makes
Because would
sense.
we would need to post it and take minutes and, yeah, okay. All right, I'll send you,
But they're
some dates.
definitely all available during the day.
Okay, I can make that work probably. Okay. Anything else for administrator updates?
I think that's it.
All right, thank you. We did public forum. Anyone have anything for other?
I do, and I'm not setting up Neil because I talked to him about this. It was the annual meeting of the Lake Joe Silver Association this weekend. And as usual, any new homeowners there, I ask about why the town can't do something about North Shore Drive. And recognizing it's a class 6 road, and I always, tell them, well, town can't do anything about it. And I just like Neil to state on the record for the minutes why the town can't do anything.
So state statute prevents towns from spending funds on class 6 roads. So it would have to be voted by town meeting or a new road laid out over it to make that a class 5 road for the town to do work there. And that means really anything, even though the town isn't legally able to do any work there, if the town started doing work there, it could and probably would automatically become a class 5 road, and then the town would be fully responsible for the road.
Well, like I said, I've said that, but I think people question where I'm coming from. So if it's in the minutes and I can just show them this is in the minutes.
And that's a unique road because it originally started as a state access to the lake, and the state made it a class 6 road. And I would have to look back and
Wait, they made it a class 6 road?
yeah, when they it's interesting. I would have to go back and look at it, but it's different than
Can the state maintain it?
um
They can, because they're abutters. They own land next to it.
oh right,
We can't do anything because we don't own any land.
but they
next to it. The
do.
state does.
Oh yeah, so the Lake Association should approach
Approach
New
the
Hampshire DOT and see.
Because it's the state owns the boat dock land.
The
They do.
Fish and Game apparently is responsibility for the boat launch. And they're going to be approached about a runoff there, which is
That
very
has-
bad.
That has been a problem. They've been approached before
Yeah,
about runoff.
okay.
And then is this from all the maps I've seen on North Shore Drive, the class 6 road ends at the boat dock. Is it private past that?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
And South Shore Drive is private. And unfortunately, it used to go through, but there's a house in the middle. So
But all those landowners could improve the road.
yes, it's private. They could do whatever they.
Not just North Shore, they can improve the class 6 road as well.
and have done that to an extent. And there's always an issue about how much do you want to improve it? Because that means more speed and more traffic to the boat launch.
And they do plow it. Private.
Well,
Private.
if somebody is living there in the winter, and they have to get in or out, they have to take care of plowing themselves. There are some people that have lived there that have had plows. The association doesn't pay for any kind of plowing. But okay, that's all I wanted to mention. Thank you.
Right. We have two non-publics, so once we go into those, we will adjourn and will not conduct any other business. So I'll make a motion that we go into non-public under 91A 32C and also 91A 32D.
I'll second.
All right, it's a roll call vote. Ken?
Yes.
Yes, and Thomas?
Yes.
All right,